the average taker of the SAT, specifically for the grammar portion, they're going to look at all the questions that they need to know and all the concepts. They might take a couple of practice tests and then decide that that's it. Where they end up is where they end up on the grammar SAT. They make no mention to even improve their score. And even if they do, they play all of the questions by ear and they don't remember the specific rules that they need to know to actually improve on grammar. Now, a 1600 score might have started that way. They might have not known all the rules. They might not have known any of the rules. They might not have fully understood what they needed to do, and they might have been playing all the questions by ear. But through practice and through realizing what is the wrong method and what is the right method, and with the right information and a lot of work in practicing these methods, they were able to get the highest score possible. Right. So back when I was taking the SATs, it was like right after my first SAT, right? There was a huge gap between the first and the second SAT I ever took. It was about like 5 or 6 months, I think. Right. And in that time, I was thinking like, I gotten this score that I gotten on the first one, higher than I anticipated actually. So if I want to improve, I just have to put like a minimal level of effort. I just need to practice the same questions that I've already been doing, and I'll perfect them just by repeating and reviewing them, and hopefully I'll get the right answer. And that's true to some extent, right? If your score is like not extremely high and you just need to practice like test taking, it will increase your score by doing that. But the issue is that that's not how you actually improve. And that's not how I actually improve. Like, just imagine like just taking the test again, reviewing it, and hoping to get a different outcome without actually learning anything, right? Imagine that. So you see, like looking back, I can tell how stupid it is, right? But when I was in the moment itself, just taking the practice test and not reviewing, and well, I was reviewing, but I wasn't learning anything from it. I wasn't like practicing the skill that I needed to know for those kinds of questions. In the moment, it feels like it's the right thing to do, but looking back, I realized that it was so dumb to do that. Right. So in this like video, I'm going to explain some general tips that you can apply on everything, and then specific tips for extremely common question types that go through a bunch of questions on the grammar SAT. So hi, I'm Karthik. These are the best tips for the SAT grammar section. All right, getting right into it. Learn all the rules. I mentioned this in the story and in my personal experience that it was a mistake that I made, but here's like more specifically about the rules. This is the most important skill of SAT grammar. It's not about your intuition or your ability to understand the English language. It's how well do you know all the grammar rules, and can you apply them where they're needed, and can you differentiate incorrect from correct grammar? And that's actually a very difficult skill even for native English speakers. It's not very easy to do, right? So this is the most important skill that you really need to memorize. So how do you find what rules to learn and specifically what's on the SAT? The College Board website has listed everything that's on the SAT. Refer to that, first of all. And second of all, Khan Academy, official College Board partner, is extremely useful for that, and it's completely free. You can do it tomorrow, right? You can do it today. You can look on the website, go through all the grammar skills that they have listed, and just watch their videos on it and do practice, right? Figure out which ones you don't know as well as the others, right? Some of them you might have known from like rules that you remember from learning in like elementary school or something, but some of them you might have difficulty with not knowing specifically what is correct. Like it might sound correct, but then you realize that it's incorrect because the way we speak is not the same way that we like know grammatically correct. So identify what you don't know. And then basically the goal is that you learn that skill first, right? You watch a video, you look at a couple of like websites online on what the rule actually is, and then you learn like more about that skill, and then you practice that skill. You practice multiple SAT questions with that skill, and then that's how you master it, and that's how you never have to like go back to it again. So do that. And right, I already talked about using your ear, but I'm going to say a little bit more about that. Using your ear is going to lead you down the wrong path, right? When you read all the answer choices and you try to figure out which one sounds correct, right? That's what I mean by using your ear. You're going to get the question wrong, right? You might be right some of the time, but the test itself is designed to make you like do that and make it wrong, right? It's designed to make you think that other choices, when you read it aloud and sound it by ear, that they're correct. But that's how they deceive you with these answer choices, and you shouldn't rely on your ear, right? Rely on logical reasons for why every question is wrong. And this goes back to the last point. You have to know every single point, right? That's on the SAT. You need to know all the concepts. And if you know all the concepts, you can grammatically, like logically think, like with these grammatical reasons, this one is incorrect because of this reason. This one is incorrect because of another reason. You need to know all of those in order to like master this section and reliably get 100% of them correct. Right. So redundancy, length, function, grammar, those are often the logical reasons why you can differentiate from the correct or incorrect answer choices. And that's not always the case that it's always going to be one of those, but those are just like 90% of the test. Okay. So common grammar problems. How do we fix this? Run-on sentences, right? So this one is like extremely vulnerable to this idea that like you read it and you think that it's correct. So don't do that for this one, right? So basically what are run-ons? They're mashed together independent clauses, and it's not a full correct sentence because it's too many without a period, right? You need to separate them somehow, and it's not grammatically correct, right? Independent clauses are clauses that can stand by themselves. How do you fix this? So the basic idea is how you can fix it by adding something like a small word is you can add commas, you can use conjunction words, you can add periods or use a semicolon. That's how you like combine them. But if you have clauses, right, that are in the sentence and it's still a run-on and you need to add that clause or like combine it, right, use dependent clauses, right? Like comma and then add a word to the beginning of an independent clause that makes it not be able to stand on its own as a sentence. Use relative clauses, add like who does this, like a noun, who does this, and then the rest of the sentence, or a noun and which does that, or that is, right? Add one of those words at the beginning of the phrase to turn it into a relative clause, right? So noun phrases are just like ways to like specify what the previous noun was, right? You'll see like a sentence and then a comma phrase, and in between that describes the previous word. Like use noun phrases to combine these sentences and make them correct, right? And I obviously said this already, but it's highly susceptible by ear. So make sure you're using these methods. And these aren't all the methods, just most, like 99% of them. Make sure you use one of these methods to figure out if it's a run-on and if it needs combining. Okay, so pronouns, right? Pronouns are going to take place of one noun. Keep that in mind. They only take place of one noun, right? And now that you know that, match that noun. Like, is that noun a plural noun? Is it referring to multiple people or is it referring to one? Match the plurality of that with the pronoun that you pick. So instead of he or him, like use they or them, right? So pick the reference noun and make sure that that agrees with the plurality of the pronoun that you pick. Also, the pronoun can only be used if it's extremely clear that you know what noun it's referring to, right? If there's two nouns and I just like, let's say there's like two like male characters, and then for my pronoun I just use he, I can't use that because it could refer to both people. So keep in mind that the pronoun has to be very clear on what it's referring to. All right. Combining sentences, right? So you know about run-ons already. So how do we like combine these sentences? And I'm not talking about just like run-on combinations of like how you combine them with specific phrases. I'm talking about like how do we specifically combine them, right? So these are even more things that you could do to combine those phrases. So trailing comma phrases, right, is basically the dependent clause and then the comma that adds it to the end. You have your prepositions, your conjunctions, and your infinitives, right? There are verbs that you can add like to do, to go, to walk. That's an infinitive. Conjunctions, I already talked about them. They like and, like words basically like that, and prepositions and prepositional phrases that you can add to do those. And with combining sentence questions, they're different than run-on questions, right? Because run-on questions, you either have to edit the sentence to work or you have to combine it with another or cut it off to make sure that it works. With combining sentences, we're trying to combine two short sentences. And remember that we actually want to have the fewest words possible. Even though we're combining sentences, we want to use the fewest words and fewest pronouns and keep the meaning of the question, like the meaning of the sentence, the same in reference to what the question is asking you. So make sure that the meaning is same and you use few words and it's not redundant and you don't redo meanings again, right? You don't use two verbs that essentially mean the same thing. You only use one of them. If you make sure all of those are correct, then combining sentences becomes pretty easy because you know the method to combine, and now you have to know the way that the SAT thinks you should combine in the shortest, most effective way possible. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you learned something today.